In the sterile glow of a university lab, Dr. Aisha Coleman, a brilliant black professor, faces a relentless harasser who mistakes her quiet strength for weakness. Unaware that her past as a decorated military operative hides a force he's not prepared to reckon with, Dr. Aisha Coleman stood at the front of the lab, her voice steady as she explained the intricacies of biochemical pathways to her graduate students. The room hummed with the soft whir of equipment, the faint scent of chemicals lingering in the air. Her dark eyes scanned the group, catching the occasional nod or scribbled note. At 38, Aisha was a respected figure in the biochemistry department at West Virginia University, known for her sharp intellect and no-nonsense approach. But beneath her composed exterior lay a history few knew, a past forged in the crucible of military service, where she'd earned scars and skills most couldn't imagine. Across the lab, a new lab assistant, Ethan Caldwell, leaned against a counter, his arms crossed, his gaze fixed on Aisha. Ethan was in his late 20s, with a wiry frame and a smirk that seemed permanently etched on his face. Hired just a month ago, he'd quickly made himself a nuisance. His comments, veiled as jokes, carried a sharp edge, always testing, always pushing. Aisha had noticed the way he lingered after hours, the way his eyes followed her when she worked alone. She'd dealt with his type before, but something about Ethan's persistence set her nerves on edge. It started small. A comment about her accent, though she'd been born and raised in Chicago. A quip about her hair, tightly coiled and pulled back for lab safety. Then came the emails and signed, sent from an anonymous university account. "You don't belong here." One read, "Stick to teaching, not research," said another. Aisha reported them to the department head, Dr. Margaret Hensley, who promised to investigate but urged her to keep things professional. Aisha's jaw tightened at the suggestion, but she nodded. She'd learned long ago to pick her battles. Ethan's behavior escalated. During a lab session, he interrupted her lecture with a question laced with mockery. "Dr. Coleman, are you sure that's how enzymes work? I read something different online." The room went quiet, students shifting uncomfortably. Aisha met his gaze, her voice calm but firm. "If you'd like to discuss primary sources, Ethan, I'm happy to after class. Let's stay on topic." He smirked, undeterred, and she felt a familiar heat rise in her chest, a reminder of the discipline she'd honed years ago. Aisha's military past wasn't something she advertised. She'd served 8 years in the Army, rising to the rank of captain in a special operations unit. Her missions had taken her to places where survival demanded precision and grit. She defused explosives under pressure, led teams through hostile terrain, and earned a Silver Star for pulling a wounded comrade to safety under fire. When she left the service, she channeled that focus into science, earning her PhD in biochemistry. But the instincts never left her, the hyper-awareness, the ability to read a room, the readiness to act. Ethan, oblivious to this, saw only a black woman in a position he envied. He'd been passed over for a teaching assistant role, and Aisha, in his mind, was an easy target. His harassment grew bolder. One evening, as Aisha worked late analyzing protein samples, she found a note slipped under her office door. "You're out of your depth," it read, the handwriting unmistakably Ethan's. She folded it carefully, tucking it into her desk. Evidence, she thought. She wasn't one to act impulsively, but she was done ignoring him. The next day, Aisha confronted Ethan in the lab, her voice low to avoid drawing attention. "I know you wrote the note, Ethan. This stops now." He feigned innocence, his smirk widening. "I don't know what you're talking about, Professor. Maybe you're stressed. Long hours, right?" His tone dripped with condescension, and Aisha's fingers twitched, a reflex from years of training. She took a breath, grounding herself. Not yet, she thought. Over the next week, Ethan's antics intensified. He tampered with her lab equipment, loosening a centrifuge lid so it malfunctioned mid-experiment. He spread rumors among the students, questioning her credentials. Aisha documented everything, dates, times, incidents. She learned in the Army to build a case before striking. But Ethan's boldness was escalating faster than she'd anticipated. During a faculty meeting, he accidentally spilled coffee on her research notes, grinning as he apologized. Dr. Hensley, present at the meeting, dismissed it as clumsiness. Aisha's patience was fraying. One night, alone in the lab, Aisha was calibrating a spectrometer when she heard the door click shut. Ethan stood there, his usual smirk replaced by something darker. "You're working late again," he said, stepping closer. "You really think you're cut out for this? I could do your job better." Aisha's pulse quickened, but her face remained impassive. She'd faced worse threats than this. Men with guns, not egos. "Back off, Ethan," she said, her voice like steel. He laughed, taking another step. "Or what?" In that moment, Aisha's training kicked in. She assessed the room, exits, objects, distances. Ethan was close, too close, but unarmed. She could disarm him in seconds if needed, but she didn't want it to come to that. "Last warning," she said, her eyes locked on his. Something in her tone made him pause, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. Then he laughed again, brushing it off, and walked out. Aisha didn't sleep that night. She sat at her kitchen table, the anonymous emails printed out before her, Ethan's note beside them. She knew his type. Cowards who thrived on intimidation but crumpled under real pressure. She'd seen it in war zones, in barracks, in labs. But this wasn't just about her. If Ethan was bold enough to target her, he could target others, students, colleagues. She couldn't let that happen. The next morning, Aisha met with Dr. Hensley again, presenting her documentation. Hensley sighed, adjusting her glasses. "Aisha, these are serious accusations. Ethan's just a lab assistant. Are you sure you're not overreacting?" Aisha's jaw clenched, but she kept her voice even. "I'm sure. I have evidence. I need you to act." Hensley promised to escalate the matter, but Aisha wasn't hopeful. Bureaucracy moved slowly, and she wasn't one to wait. That afternoon, Ethan crossed a line. During a lab session, he deliberately sabotaged Aisha's demonstration, switching out a reagent so the experiment failed in front of her students. The room buzzed with confusion, and Ethan's smirk was unmistakable. Aisha's calm snapped. She dismissed the class early and turned to him. "Outside. Now!" Her tone left no room for argument. In the hallway, away from prying eyes, Aisha faced him. "You've been harassing me for weeks. The notes, the emails, the sabotage, it ends the day." Ethan scoffed, leaning against the wall. "Prove it. No one's going to believe you over me." Aisha stepped closer, her voice low. "You don't know who you're dealing with, Ethan. I've handled worse than you in places you'd never survive. Stop now or you'll regret it." For the first time, Ethan's smirk faltered. Aisha's presence, calm, controlled, but radiating authority, unsettled him. He muttered something about her being paranoid and walked away. But Aisha saw the crack in his bravado. She wasn't done. She spent the evening compiling her evidence into a formal complaint, copying the university's HR department and the dean. She included screenshots of the emails, photos of the note, and a detailed log of Ethan's actions. She also reached out to a former colleague from her military days, now a private investigator, to trace the anonymous account. The university's response was sluggish. HR scheduled a meeting, but Ethan was allowed to continue working. Aisha's instincts told her he wouldn't stop. She was right. 2 days later, she found her office door ajar, her computer open to a file she hadn't touched. Nothing was missing, but the message was clear. Ethan was escalating, testing how far he could go. Aisha decided to take matters into her own hands, not with violence, but with strategy. She installed a small security camera in her office, hidden in a bookshelf. She began varying her schedule, arriving early or staying late unpredictably. She also started carrying a small recorder, capturing Ethan's comments during lab sessions. Her military training had taught her to anticipate an enemy's moves, and Ethan was predictable. He thrived on routine, targeting her when she was alone or distracted. The breaking point came a week later. Aisha was working late, analyzing data, when Ethan entered the lab unannounced. The camera was rolling. He approached her bench, his voice low and menacing. "You're making things hard for yourself, Aisha," dropped the complaint, "or I'll make sure you regret it." Aisha didn't look up from her work. "You're on camera, Ethan. Keep talking." His face paled as he followed her gaze to the bookshelf. He stammered, then bolted. The next day, Aisha presented the footage to HR, along with her investigative report confirming Ethan's link to the anonymous emails. The evidence was undeniable. Ethan was suspended pending an investigation, but Aisha wasn't satisfied. She knew he'd try to retaliate. She was ready. Late one night, as Aisha left the lab, she sensed someone following her. The campus was quiet, the parking lot dimly lit. She slowed her pace, her senses sharp. Footsteps echoed behind her, deliberate, not accidental. She turned a corner, slipping into the shadows of a building, and waited. Ethan appeared, his face tense, a tire iron in his hand. He hadn't seen her. Aisha moved silently, her training taking over. In seconds, she was behind him, her arm locking his in a control hold. The tire iron clattered to the ground. "You thought I was an easy target," she said, her voice steady. "You were wrong." Ethan struggled, but her grip was ironclad. She held him just long enough to make her point, then released him, stepping back. "Go home, Ethan. Don't come near me again." He stumbled away, shaken. Aisha reported the incident to campus security, providing the footage from a nearby camera. Ethan was arrested the next day for attempted assault. The university, under pressure from Aisha's meticulous evidence, terminated his employment and issued a public apology. The dean personally assured Aisha that new measures would be implemented to protect faculty. Aisha returned to her lab, her focus unbroken. She'd face worse odds and come out stronger. Her students noticed a quiet confidence in her, a reminder that she was more than a professor. She was a survivor, a soldier, a force, and she wasn't done fighting. Not for her work, her students, or her place in a world that too often underestimated her.